In this question, we have to determine what goes in for x here to make this equation true. Well, one way to do it is just simply plug in these values in for x to see which one gives us the answer of 16. So for example, if we took the first value of 4 and plugged it into this equation, we would get the square root of 4 and see what it equals. Well, we know that the square root of 4 is equal to 2. So right away, we know that A is not the right answer. And if we kept going, we'll try the square root of 8 and plug that into our calculator. We get 2.82 roughly, or 83. So we know that that's not the right answer. Alright, let's try the square root of 32. Plugging that in, we get about 5.66, so we know that that's not the right answer. Well, hopefully we'll try 256, see what the square root of that is. And we plug that in, we do see that it actually does equal 16, which is the answer we want, so we know that D is the right answer. But what if they didn't give us these values over here on the left? How would we determine the value for x that makes that equation true? Well, we can look at what are called opposite operations. So for example, the opposite of adding something is subtracting something. And the opposite of multiplying something is dividing something. So for example, if I add 2 to something, the opposite is to subtract 2 from something. If I multiplied something by 3, the opposite would be to divide something by 3. Now we're given the square root of something. In this case, that something is x. So what's the opposite of square rooting something? Well, if we were to take the square root of some value, I'll just call it a box here, the opposite is to square that value. So coming back to our equation, if we wanted to isolate x all by itself without the square root sign, we do the opposite operation. And so the square root of x, to get rid of the square root sign, we square this side. And whatever we do to the one side of the equation, we have to do to the other. So we have to then take 16 and also square it. So since square rooting and squaring something are opposite, what we're left with on the left is just the x all by itself. And 16 squared is 256. And we get that because 16 squared means 16 times 16, which equals 256. And another word for opposite is inverse operations. And they're called inverse or opposite operations because they undo each other. So if we look down our list of options, we can see that the right answer is D.